There are reports, one by Nigeria-based human rights NGO International Society for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law into Society, found that there's an average of more than 30 Christians in Nigeria being killed every single day. More than 7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria this year. Yet Nigeria has pushed back against reports such as those. Its Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying earlier that this year that there's plenty of misinformation and misleading reports regarding the supposed targeted killings of Christians. Can I get your response to that?
Yeah, the government's speaking nonsense and hoping the world doesn't pay attention. Nigeria today is an epicenter of Christian martyrdom. Since the year 2000, more than 60,000 Christians have been murdered by Islamist groups like Boko Haram, heavily armed Fulani militia. Our organisation's 2023 report I mentioned places Nigeria firmly in the red category, meaning it's persecution, it's not just discrimination. You know, what makes Nigeria unique is that Christians are not even a tiny minority. They make up almost half the population, 100 million people, yet they live as if they're second-class citizens, especially in the north. The Nigerian government's failed to take any meaningful action to prevent attacks, and the violence is relentless. In Benue State alone, one diocese recorded 93 villages attacked, 330 farmers killed in just a year. This past June, a couple months ago, another attack in Benue. A gunman raided a town, killed 100 people, forced 4,000 to leave. And it's not just killings, Gabriella. We're speaking of abductions, burned villages, destruction of churches, millions forced into camps where they lack even the basics. And every single day, Nigerian Christians wake up to the fresh news of kidnappings or attacks. It's not sporadic, it's systematic, it's targeted, it's gone on for decades with little accountability.
Absolutely horrific. Can you talk to us about how the aid to the Church in Need supports the suffering, oppressed and persecuted Christians?
Yeah, sure. Look, for 80 years, the work of HCN has been to keep the faith alive, as we say, in those places where it's under greatest assault through persecution, oppression, poverty. We're not a humanitarian or a development agency. We're what's called a pastoral agency. Our work is to sustain the faith directly. So we build, or in the case of Africa, rebuild churches often, sustain poor nuns, priests, provide them with means of transport. In all, we undertake about 6,000 projects a year, completely funded by, in our case, Catholics around the world, no funding from church or state. But the work we do of the suffering churches, we call it, inspires and brings back life to us. I think our founder used to say, they're being tested in faith and we're being tested in love. And the resilience of the Nigerian church to just keep on that is incredible. The daily threats, the priests and sisters traveling to remote villages at risk of their lives. We have had to do things that no spiritual charity ever thought it would do. We built high fences around seminaries. We provide enclosed vehicles. We fund trauma healing. So this persecution, from what we see it deepens faith. And the church in Nigeria is young and vibrant. Attendance is high. And the blood of the martyrs remains the seed of Christians, the same in Nigeria as it has been right throughout the history.
Bernard, before I let you go, I just want to ask you about what's happening in the US. We're seeing more attacks, certainly targeting churches in the United States. Those attacks have increased significantly in recent years, according to a report. And of course, that horrific shooting at a Minnesota Catholic school is just one of the latest examples. What do you put this rise in attacks on churches down to in the US?
For me, it's an easy question. I really put it down to a loss of faith. It's not just the USA. There have been more than 100 arson attacks on churches in France in the last 5 years. 50 years ago, the entire Western world threw off what they deemed to be the shackles of the collective Christian faith. And so now, over 2 generations later, we've moved from a society of at least a cultural faith to a hatred towards faith, Christian faith anyway. But the thing is, the Christian faith, it isn't just Sunday school and grace before meals. It's a whole world overview. Now, instead of worshipping the Creator, we worship the climate. We build massive places of worship called shopping centres. We eat, we drink, we marry. And in that same movement of secularization, we've moved towards an intolerance, because I think deep down, people know that some of their moral, ethical and life choices are not so good. We shoot the messenger, and there's no shortage of examples. 2,000 years ago, King Herod put the head of John the Baptist on a plate because he told him he shouldn't commit adultery. 3 weeks ago, someone shot Charlie Kirk in the head because the person didn't want to be told that a person's sex is an 8. None of us like being confronted about our sins and failings. Christians don't like it either. I don't. But Christianity provides a framework and a system to better oneself. Radical secularization preaches intolerance. So, the news will continue to see violence against Christians and Christian churches.
Bernard Tatunji, National Director of Aid in the Church in Need, Australia and New Zealand. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gabriella. See you later.